Welcome, everybody, to Hot Takes on the Lake. I'm Josh, and I'm joined here by your host, Nick. We are two lifelong Browns fans that are going to be previewing the Browns' Week 2 game home opener against the New York Jets. Nick, before we get to that, though, let's just talk a little bit about the last game. We did a full recap right after the game, but it's been a few days now. How do you feel about the Browns' Week 1 victory against the Panthers now that we're a few days away from it?
Honestly, being a few days out of it, I come to realize that it's better to have won that game because I feel like I just would have been pissed off this entire week if we would have managed to blow that game. And not even just from the aspect of Baker Mayfield being on the other side. It was just we were in a position to win that game, and I think just with better quarterback play, we could have put it away at halftime. But yeah, it's definitely good to be 1-0 and looking forward to being possibly 2-0 for the first time in a very long time this week.
Yeah, absolutely. The Browns are the heavy favorite this week so far. ESPN has them at 76.6% chance of winning, which is a very heavy favorite for ESPN's matchup predictor. And we're going to go over the whole game. I do want to say quickly, though, after a few days sitting on the Panthers game, you know, one could argue that if the refs correctly called the fake spike, we could have very well lost that game. And I'm not one to do revisionist history. I'm not one to, it's happened to the Browns so many times, right? Like, if the refs did this, if the refs didn't let, this player get hit in the head as he was diving into the end zone, all these different things. So I totally get it, and I'm not one to go back. And I'm actually, a lot of people were complaining about the roughing the passer call. I think that's totally ridiculous. Even on that same play, if they didn't call the roughing the passer, there was also a late hit that they threw a flag for. So even without the roughing the passer, it wouldn't have mattered. But on that fight, the fake spike call. I had never heard of that before, and we were watching the game on mute, so we didn't know what the possible call was. After learning about it afterwards, and then seeing that in another game happening at the same time, they actually made that same call. I believe it was someone was at the Saints Falcons game, I believe. That's pretty nuts and coincidental. Somehow, fortune was just in our favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just watching the game, I mean, it didn't look just like a quick little spike. It did look kind of odd when he was doing it. And obviously we had the game on mute. We couldn't have it blasting, so we were like, oh my god, is there a flag? Like, what's this going on here? Is this gonna like completely push us out of field goal range? But honestly, like you said, there's been so many times where things haven't gone our way. One that comes to mind is I think we were playing the Bucks a couple years ago when the ref basically said the quarterback was out of the pocket, therefore he's allowed to get hit. It was just like,
And allowed to get
okay,
hit in the head.
yeah, it's like, okay, so you just pulled that out of your ass. Like, we can just,
Yeah.
start making up rules now. Okay. So, I mean, it's just part of being a sports fan. Sometimes it's going to go your way, sometimes it's not, honestly. So, yeah, by the definition of the rule, yeah, there probably should have been a flag, but honestly, you know what? We got away with one. So, that's the way I look at it. And I'm sure there's going to be some calls definitely this season that are not going to go our way. We're going to be bitching about them. So, I mean, it evens out eventually, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And it did set up one of the coolest Browns moments in history, that 58-yard game-winning field
Mhm.
goal kick from Cade York. So it all worked out for us this week. But jumping into this game against the Jets, who got pretty manhandled by the Ravens in their Week 1 game. Zach Wilson, their quarterback, has an injury, so Joe Flacco will be the starting quarterback for them. And in week 1 against his old team, he went 37 for 59. They threw it 59 times. 300 yards, one touchdown, one interception. I mean, comparing it to Brissett, it's not like Brissett did all that much better in week 1, but I'm just baffled by the stat of throwing it 59 times. Please throw it 59 times against us. Please do that, because I have no real faith in Joe Flacco. I think there was an interview that came out recently where he talked about how he doesn't even want to be a starter. Like, he's just in the league now at this point to make money. He thought he was going to get back up here for sure behind Zach Wilson. So yeah, it should be an easy one just based on that, but obviously you don't want to underestimate him. And the Browns did have their own problems in week 1 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we obviously saw Joe Flacco plenty of times just from being with the Ravens for so many years, and especially playing against some very bad Browns teams. So we've actually seen Joe Flacco play pretty well. But there's no excuse at this stage in his career that he should be throwing the ball almost 60 times a game. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Especially with a decent running back in Michael Carter. They drafted, who is it? Brees Hall. They drafted him too out of Iowa State. So I mean, they have two decent running backs. I'm really just completely flabbergasted that they would throw that many times with Flacco. I mean, I can understand with Zach Wilson, maybe just still like a second year guy trying to see, what he has. But I mean, still, that's just a lot of times for not a very good team. And especially going up against the Ravens, which is always, even if they don't have the star power as they used to back in the day, they're just always a tough defense to play against, especially in the secondary. So, yeah, if that's their game plan coming in, then like you said, by all means, go for it. See how that turns out for you.
Yeah, and analyzing the Jets stats a little bit more in their first game, they actually had 390 total offensive yards, almost 400 yards, and they only allowed 276 from the Ravens. So looking at that, you think that's a pretty good stat, but the score of that game ended up 24-9. So I think a lot of those offensive stats probably came from garbage time, and likewise, they probably only allowed that little because the Ravens had already kind of put the game in the bag. That's my guess without watching the full game. I'll probably watch the highlights of it before Sunday, but focusing on the Browns side because we did watch that game, what's kind of your biggest concern, something you hope we address as we go into week 2?
I mean, I think a lot of people would say the quarterback play, but I mean, to be quite honest, yeah, Brissett missed some throws, but I mean, I think it was pretty much to be expected. I think that's what we're going to see a lot until Deshaun Watson comes back, unfortunately. You're going to see Brissett not really take many chances, not really throw many picks out there, but really just kind of be not accurate. We highlighted a couple plays to Peoples Jones where he kind of had to dive to almost even get a hand on the ball. They were kind of inaccurate, and especially on deep routes too. But I'm going to go with just the miscommunication on defense, those two blown plays, because besides that, that game really wouldn't have been, anywhere near close to what it was. I mean, and credit to the Panthers for taking advantage of it. But it just seems like I know Joe Woods runs a pretty complicated defense, but for the most part, especially in the secondary, even though guys have been banged up, it's still the same guys. They've played together for a little bit, or at least know the defense that they're playing in. So just to still have those miscommunications on those big plays is a little concerning. But I think that's something that they obviously can clean up and get better. And like I said, guys have like Grant Delpit have been banged up. Newsom has been banged up. Denzel Ward is always banged up here or there. You had a rookie Emerson playing out there in relief for Greedy Williams. So that's definitely going to happen. That's definitely something to clean up. But they have a stud rookie wide receiver on the other side in Garrett Wilson, who really can just burn you. I mean, he can just go all over the field if you really just miscommunicate out there and give up another big play like a Robbie Anderson type of play like we saw last week. So quarterback play I think is going to be average, but I think really that secondary just really, just knowing what your job is, knowing what the coverage is, I think is really going to be key going forward if we're going to have any chance to be a halfway decent team until Deshaun Watson gets back.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on the quarterback play. There's not really anything you can do about it. I mean, obviously, you hope Brissett plays a little bit better, a little bit more accurate, but it's not like he's suddenly going to be a great quarterback and we aren't suddenly going to have a better option. So, not really much to do there. And that's why I think that, like you said, those defensive communications and coverages are going to be key. If they're going to be a throw-heavy team, especially if we get up early like we did last week against the Panthers, if they're going to be a throw-heavy team, out there with Joe Flacco, I think that our defense, especially our secondary, really has to step up. The last time we played the Jets, I know this is two completely different teams at this point, but last time we played the Jets, I believe was that Monday Night Football game, and that was basically a slaughter, right? So hopefully, score-wise, I don't want anyone to get hurt, but score-wise, I hope this game is similar. Myles Garrett had a huge impact in that game, and he had a big impact last week with 2 sacks in a row, the latter being a strip sack as well. So he's probably going to be my biggest player to watch because I feel like this is going to be one of those games, especially if the Jets are out there throwing it that much, that he could have, one of those 3-4 sack games, kind of like he did last year early against Justin Fields with the Bears. I think this could be one of those games. So that's definitely a player on our defense I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that, I mean, the complaint against Miles Garrett is like, oh, well, he doesn't, make enough sacks for people's liking. And, people just, I think, unjustly give him a little more flack than he deserves. I think locally too. I mean, I think I see it a lot more. Definitely, there are times where he quote unquote disappears. I mean, I think that obviously is just players scheming and coaches scheming against him, throwing double teams at him. But I mean, still, he's one of the highest graded defensive players week to week in the NFL, bar none. So I think he makes impact plays when he has to. And I mean, it's rare for a guy to make a play every single play. He can't do it all out there. So that's definitely a guy that I'm always going to look for. I'm going to look for, especially on the offense, is Jedrick Wills, because there's been video going around, especially on Twitter this week, of people just roasting him, saying that he's a bad left tackle and just saying that he's completely awful. I mean, I think a couple of the plays were maybe designed that way, like some screenplays to kind of let the guy get through. And I mean, he's going up against Brian Burns, who's one of the best young defensive ends in the league. So I mean, it was a tough assignment for sure. Jedrick is another guy who's had some injury trouble as well. So I'll be interested to see against not a great pass rush in the Jets, to see really if these claims or this video evidence, so to speak, that it's been going on around on Twitter really has any merit to it or not.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not really on Twitter, so I haven't seen that. So I have no idea. But uh, our offensive line play, I thought, was pretty good last week all around. I mean, obviously the
Hmm.
run blocking was a huge one. I did see a viral clip of, I believe it was Wyatt Teller on his block for Kareem Hunt's touchdown run, where he basically not only blocked the defensive lineman, but then quickly switched over and blocked the blitzing linebacker, and that linebacker was blitzing right in the gap that Kareem Hunt ended up running through and getting that touchdown. So great play by him there. And I think overall, even in the pass blocking, I thought our offensive line held up pretty well. I think we had one sack that was off of a blitz that was pretty bad, but besides that, I thought they were good. So on the offensive side, I would just continue to look for Nick Chubb. I mean, he got 140 yards last week. He's not going to get that every single week because that would be absolutely insane. But every game, I think 100 yards is a pretty good benchmark as far as, kind of keeping us in the lead. He had such a quiet game last week because he didn't score. He didn't get any touchdowns, unfortunately. But he really was that anchor for the team that really just drove our offense, especially in the first half. And he might not have been the one to punch it in, but he allowed, Kareem Hunt to be there at the goal line or in the red zone to get those touchdowns.
Yeah, and we were talking about it even during the game. It was like he's just a quiet guy out there and just kind of goes about his business. It seemed like we didn't miss a snap of the game, but it seemed like he only had like 70 or 80 yards. Like, oh, it was a pretty decent game, but like no, he had 140. It was incredible. I think it was just those little plays where he fights for an extra 2 or 3 yards, and they just keep adding up and adding up. And especially the plays where he's so good on, where the play kind of breaks down and most guys might be tackled for a 2 or 3 yard loss, and he manages to still get 5 or 6 yards out of it somehow. I think those plays just really add up, and I still think that he is the best pure running back in the league. He might be not as versatile in the passing game as like Kareem Hunt, or obviously like McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor, but as a pure runner, I think bar none he's the best. So he should still be the number one option on the offense. And obviously Kareem Hunt, we've sung his praises as well. He is just such a relief to have, where Nick Chubb can just pound the defense, and then obviously Kareem Hunt is dangerous out of the backfield catching the ball too. So just that two-headed weapon really should still be the staple of the offense. Um, and yeah, 100 yards is a good benchmark for Chubb per game. And also, I mean, at least 20 carries. I think 20 absolutely should be the bare minimum for Nick Chubb. Even if, maybe they're keying on the running game for most of the game, I feel like over the past couple of years, we've seen really Nick Chubb get his yards like late in the third into the fourth quarter too. So really he kind of maybe starts slow, but really just wears the defense down and then breaks off a big run. So I think if Kevin Stefanski really just sticks with the run, doesn't give up on it too fast, again with Jacoby Brissett as quarterback, you don't want him throwing 59 times a game like Joe Flacco did. But I think that really should just be the main focus of the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, unless the only scenario I see is that we've blown them out so completely that, by the time we get to late in the third quarter, Nick Chubb only has, 16 carries, but we're up by 24 points. So we start going to, D'Ernest Johnson and our other running backs. That's really the only scenario where I see him getting less than 20 carries, because I totally agree. With that being said, moving over to the receiving, I am actually really curious to see how this week's going to go, because I thought this, receiving core was going to be all built around Cooper. And while he had some good plays, drawing flags, and a few good catches last week, Donovan Peoples-Jones was really the standout. 6 catches for 60 yards, some amazing athletic catches. So I'm excited to see how that tandem is going to work, who is going to be the true number one or the favorite target for Brissett. And then also, is David Njoku going to be able to get in there? We saw 4 targets to Harrison Bryant, but only 1 to Njoku in week 1. So I don't know. It's going to be tough to kind of balance all that. It's funny because one of our biggest weaknesses, people probably would have said, is wide receiver depth, but it really seems like we have a lot of people fighting for touches because we run the ball so much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be another big key, is getting Cooper and Njoku involved. And we kept joking on the stream last week that, a third down play. All right, got to go to Harrison Bryant.
Harrison
again.
Bryant,
But, I mean,
yep. 3rd and 17.
Reliable. Just throw it up to Harrison Bryant. He'll catch it. But yeah, I mean, I think also it could just be, just week 1. They're trying to get a new offense, a new quarterback in there. He's still getting used to things, getting used to different guys, how they move, and I really think Amari Cooper is going to pay dividends just because he's such a good route runner and gets open. And like you said, even if he's not making plays catching the ball, I think he just runs such good routes that guys are naturally just going to hold on to him. And I think he's going to draw a lot of flags. And again, with, average to mediocre quarterback play for the first 11 games, that's really going to help us move the ball, especially because the running backs can't do it all. So getting Cooper involved, getting Njoku involved is going to be a big key. Peoples-Jones, I mean, we couldn't say more good things about him. Always seemed to make a play when we needed it. And really just, a lot of tough catches. A lot of them were just like guys draped all over him, low to the ground. So I was really impressed with him just making a play and just really helping out Brissett. So obviously we've seen him have over the top speed too down the field. So that's what I'm going to be looking for as well. Obviously you can't just dink and dunk your way down the field. So really just getting upfield, getting those long pass plays is really going to be key to have any success.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, to be completely honest, again, really not trying to underrate the Jets or underestimate them. But I feel like even if the passing game isn't quite there, even if it's not even on the level of last week, if it's not as good as that, and that wasn't that great, still, I think this is a game where the rushing attack can really kind of lead you forward. And unless the Jets come out in some type of scheme that totally stops our run, which I'll be shocked by, I don't see Brissett needing to make more. Let's see, he threw 34 times last week. I don't even think he's going to need to throw that many times. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws it, 25 to 28 times in this game, especially if we get that early lead and then end up, running out the clock. So I'm excited for the passing game. I'm excited to see who will be the standout there, but not thinking that it's a huge, kind of key to winning this game. I guess the better question is, how do you see the Browns losing this game? If it's going to happen, what do you think are the circumstances to where the Jets come out with the win?
I think the obvious answer is more defensive mistakes in the secondary because, like I said, you have Garrett Wilson and you have Elijah Moore is a good receiver. Corey Davis is decent. And Joe Flacco, I mean, if you leave guys open there, he's going to find them. So I think that would probably be arguably the biggest thing. But also, I think just turning the ball over. I think if we really just start throwing some picks, Chubb and Hunt are usually pretty good as far as fumbles go. But hey, anything can happen. But I really think if Brissett is really just in a not a good rhythm early and starts making mistakes, that's really gonna just put us behind the 8 ball, and the defense is gonna really have to play out of their minds to really stop I think an underrated offense. Like I said, the quarterback play is bad, but they still have some decent weapons out there. I'm not sure if CJ Uzomah is going to be playing or not, but he's also a good tight end we saw in Cincinnati for a few years now, so he's always been problems for us. So I think that's the main key, is just taking care of the ball, because if you can't just pound the defense with Chubb and Hunt, and then hit your pass plays here and there, if you start turning the ball over, I think this game could really kind of get away from us early.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're definitely correct on the turnovers. Obviously, with interceptions, you don't want to see any of those. Brissett didn't have any last week, so would like to see that trend continue. But even with the running game, I would say one of the biggest. I don't want to say flaws, but one of the biggest drawbacks of having a run-heavy offense is defensive players have just gotten too good on an individual level at punching out the football or focusing on getting that fumble to where it doesn't matter how good of a running back you are. If you run it as many times as the Browns do, you're going to have unfortunate fumbles. The focus should just be to limit them, but they're going to happen. And I don't think Chubb or Hunt had any fumbles last week, so I hope that continues. But Nick Chubb isn't bad with the football, but he's had those unfortunate fumbles. He's had those really big runs where then it gets punched out right at the end, right? So, or on those fourth and shorts, so that could happen, but I'll be more forgiving not only just this week but the whole season. I'll be much more forgiving of an unfortunate fumble from a good defensive play than an interception, because in my opinion we should not be making mistakes in the passing game. We should be limiting it as much as possible until Deshaun Watson gets here, then start slinging it around and throw some picks if it happens. But with Brissett, yeah, I'd love to see him in his total run maybe have less than 5 interceptions, and you do that by not playing aggressively. And I think playing aggressively is something Kevin Stefanski loves to do. But when Cade York showed you how good he can be, if you're past the 40-yard line, just kick it. Just kick the field goal. You don't got to be aggressive every time, because I like aggressive play calling, but with Brissett as the quarterback, I really don't have any faith in a fourth down offense, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially on those 4th and 3, 4th and 4s, he usually likes to go for it, or at least give the illusion that he's going for it. If you had Watson out there, especially with his ability to run, I think that's almost a no-brainer. But yeah, just with the limited passing game, it's going to be interesting to see just how aggressive he's willing to be as far as 4th down plays. And yeah, Cade York absolutely proved himself that he definitely has a leg on him. Obviously, you can't expect him to do that every single week, but I think just that's really such a boost for his confidence, getting that type of game-winning kick this early in his career in his first game. I think it's going to do wonders for him. And obviously we've been Browns fans for years, and for the longest time we had Phil Dawson, who used to be our only way of scoring points, really, as far as the offense went. But I think just at least getting points on the board will be key, and Cade York is going to do a great job with that. But yeah, I think if he's just not too aggressive, and I think Brissett's not going to take many chances and make many mistakes. Again, it's not going to be a very flashy passing game, but if it's a very safe and balanced passing game, I think that'll do wonders for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still thinking it's going to be a good game. It might be one of those, we had a few last year where it's like, if we lose the game, it's a total disaster. So we're not really expecting to lose. But with that being said, you can still kind of analyze the team, analyze what could improve through this game. I think about last year, like early on games, like against Washington or against the Eagles, where it's like, okay, we really shouldn't lose this game, and we didn't. But you got to see like either players step up and make really good plays. Like I remember last year against the Eagles, Taki having that pick 6, and you're like, oh wow, this guy's actually going to be, a good player and not a bust, So maybe someone has one of those moments in this game. That's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, what is your final score prediction for the game?
As far as score, I think it'll go like 27-10. I think it might be close early, but I think we'll eventually pull away. I just think that our defense going up against Joe Flacco I think really is going to, just swing the momentum in our favor, so to speak. They have it, like I said, they have a decent running game. I just think their offensive line is not great, especially with Mekhi Becton. Their left tackle is out again for another season. So I think whoever's lining up against Myles Garrett is absolutely going to have their hands full. Sending a guy like JOK on blitzes is really going to just make him go crazy. So I'll take our chances against Joe Flacco, and I'll say 27-10. Browns win.
Yeah, I believe last week I did a pretty generous prediction towards the Browns. So after seeing how that went, I'm not going to totally judge it, but just based off that. But I think our defense, holding the other team really early throughout the game and then, giving up multiple touchdowns in the fourth quarter is unfortunately something we're probably going to see this season a few times and is a problem. I think that's one of our biggest problems of our defense, unfortunately. So I'm not going to go as high there. I'm going to go 24-21, still with the Browns, but I think Joe Flacco, he is a guy that's going to make you pay in garbage time, not enough to beat you, but with the way our defense is, I mean, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if we're up by 21 points and then we let Joe Flacco throw a 75-yard touchdown, like we did to Baker Mayfield, right? So I would not be surprised by that. But I do think the Browns are definitely going to win. And even with the closer score, I don't think it's a game-winning field goal scenario. I think this is put away. Fourth quarter is hopefully garbage time, but I think we'll let them catch up much more than necessary.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that too. Like score a late touchdown and they, try like a desperation onside kick and we just recover it type of thing. So I could definitely see that too.
All right. Well, that's going to be our predictions for this week against the Jets, home opener here for the Browns. We're going to be enjoying the game. We're not going to be live streaming this week. Not to say that if we're streaming, we're not enjoying it, but we're just going to be watching it on our own this week. But still, stay tuned to catch when our next watch party will be for the Browns. And if you're listening to this in a podcast version or you're watching on YouTube, either way, make sure to subscribe so you can join us for all of our episodes as we cover the Browns this season here on Hot Takes on the Lake.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching and subscribing again. And obviously, I'll still be live tweeting during the game on Twitter at Hot Takes on the Lake or at Hot Takes 216, TikTok and Instagram as well at Hot Takes on the Lake. And yeah, we're just excited to start 1-0 and looking to go 2-0. So enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you guys soon.